Hi, and welcome to another edition of Easy Theory. So this is a slightly different video than what we've done usually in the past. So there was a video that was posted on Y Combinator, Hacker News, a few weeks ago about, well, I posted it. I tried to advertise the channel, about how I solved those 240 gate problems all at once in 4 hours, and it got wildly popular, as you can see. Um, so what I wanted to do was to read some of the comments and then give you some of my off-the-cuff responses to them, because I actually haven't seen these comments before today. Okay, on we go. I need to defend theory of computer science here, it seems. Please note that this, I guess, is computer science, not computer engineering. That's absolutely true. It's all about the computer science here, not it's about the study of how computers work at a fundamental level, not actually the implementation of a real computer. The idea of automata, regular languages, Turing machines, and whatnot informs some of the most fundamental results of computer science. That's absolutely true, because they tell us about what the fundamental limits of computation really is. At least in the fields where I work, compilers formal verification. Ooh, that's really cool. All of the above theory is common parlance. Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with formal verification, but I know that they use some of the results here and work with, I think, context-sensitive languages and some type of languages there, because those are what most compilers use. Everyone working on this stuff knows all of the above theories, since it forms the bedrock of a large part of what we do and how we think about the world. Knowing the complexity of the algorithms we use, the languages we parse, issues of decidability, etc. all crop up. That's because it's science, not engineering. I couldn't have said it better. GATE is meant as an entrance exam to pursue a graduate degree in computer science. Yeah, so that was actually a very good explanation of the difference between science and engineering. And from all the comments that I got on the video, it was pretty evident that a lot of the viewers, the 20 or so thousand viewers who came in, didn't have never seen this type of stuff before. So it's great that we have some ball you. I think that's how it's pronounced. Thank you for writing this. The fact that one does not need this during the day job is, dare I say, irrelevant. Yeah, that's a common criticism I get too. Where do you actually use this? Because it is useful in the real world in designing compilers and stuff, but most people think the real world is being like software engineering, like writing a program. And there is some truth to that, but the important part is it's not just that it's not irrelevant, it's just that it's not immediately apparent of what its use is. Programming languages are obviously apparent, but theory I don't think is immediately apparent. But it is important to at least have an understanding of why it's important. Just like how for encryption, for example, when we send encrypted data over a network, we don't really understand, most of us don't understand the mathematics behind all the cryptography and whatnot. So just because we don't understand it doesn't mean it's not important. So that's just something to keep in mind. The fact is, yeah, this feels to me like people complaining that number theory is completely useless. So he's going to do an example on cryptography. Good. This stuff is useful right now in a how to think about the world kind of way. Knowing the power differences between automata, transducers, PDAs, and Turing machines is critical in disparate applications involving formal verification. The difference in power of these different representations impacts what we can do with them. And I like the quotes there, that's good. The knowledge of this hierarchy fundamentally shapes how I view the world. Yeah, because, as I said already, different models have different computing powers, absolutely. A lot of people give theory a lot of crap. That's pretty funny. But that's normally because they are not comfortable with the material. Yeah, I agree. In fact, most of my students aren't comfortable, even after the end of the class. After the final exam, a lot of students aren't comfortable. And that's something I'm trying to change with this channel, but we're not there, obviously. If you are comfortable with the material, you see applications for it all over the place. Yeah, no, I agree. That's absolutely true. And use it all the time. I'm not sure of that, but I'm not sure what use it means there, but it is, you do see it all over the place. That's absolutely true. Sure, you don't have to ground your system in some kind of formal model. Yeah. So another thing to keep in mind is that the formal model isn't always important to be precise on what it is. Sometimes it is, but if you're a little loose with the definition of what the model is, you can actually get away with having the same type of model. So like for Turing machines. Turing machines are hard to understand, but a computer is easy to understand, and they're equivalent in a certain sense. So it's easier to think about things when they're not necessarily in a formal model, but they are equivalent in some definition of equivalent. But when you do, I found it always ends up as a far simpler and more resilient product. It's kind of like people who complain that math is useless in school and you'll never need it. Yeah, absolutely true. Sure, if you never really master it, you'll never be able to use it. There was this comic I saw a while ago. I forget exactly how it goes, but it was like a student asked his teacher, "Where will I ever use this math in real life?" And or like, when will this ever be useful to me? Um, uh, and the teacher responds something like, "You won't. The smart kids will use it." And I know it's a little condescending, but if you don't have the inspiration to look into something more deeply, then you won't be able to appreciate why it's so useful. Actually, that's not true. You won't be able to see the fundamental reason why it's important. You could appreciate why it's useful, but you won't be able to see the true connections underlying the theory there, if you don't have the inspiration. But I don't believe that no one could have the inspiration. I think anyone can. I think anyone could understand it. It's just being able to be motivated enough to understand. Or at least to comprehend some of the theory behind it. So you'll make things kind of work in ways that don't strictly require it and then conclude as useless. Yeah. Meanwhile, if you are familiar with it, your prospects are broader, you may have to use it, and you'll see how it was absolutely relevant and important to know. Yep. Totally agree. I think people are ready for things at certain times. I think history class was wasted on me in high school because I was a kid and didn't have much life experience. But years later, with a better grasp on human nature, I think I would have had a better grasp. You had better grasp twice in the same sentence. Yeah, a lot of people think like history and English and music and things are... Actually, all school is useless for some people think, which is insane. But... I don't know why. Another example is foreign language. Well, foreign language is more applicable because like you see the fundamental reason why it's useful, right? You don't study foreign languages just for fun. You study it because you want to be able to communicate with other people in a different language. And in some sense, that's what all learning is. It's communicating with other people about a certain something. And foreign language is just a way of doing that to cross language boundaries. But I took it in middle school and high school, and later in college I learned lots and lots of theory for many years, but only when I went to another country did I learn I hadn't learned. I'm not sure what that means. I think theory needs to be combined with experience and practice. Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's something I tried to do with my research also. How do you actually bridge the gap between theory and practice? Because a lot of the comments that we'll see here probably have no knowledge of what theory is. So there are a lot of practitioners and theory people. How do you actually bridge the gap between the two? Just like the example in the last paragraph about how do you actually communicate with people in a different language? You study their language. And so that's how you cross language boundaries. almost identical reasoning here. So that's good. I've always sort of wished I can go back and get my CS degree. Go do it. Get your CS degree. Um, it only will get harder as you get older in terms of being able to comprehend things. In terms of your motivation to try new things. Do it now. Don't put it off. If you want to do something, you might as well do it. Carpe diem, as everyone says. After I had a few years experience in industry instead of getting it before. So it depends on what you mean by getting your CS degree. So if you mean it in terms of actually getting a piece of paper where you can apply for a job with it, well, you already have a job, I assume. You have experience in industry. So if you're going to get a computer science degree just to get a job, that's useless if you already have a job in industry. If you're doing it to get a further in-depth understanding, that's definitely a good idea. And what I actually recommend for people watching, if you have a job and you want to get like your master's or your PhD or something, a lot of employers actually sponsor it. So you can actually ask, and a lot of times they may say yes, that you can like get your computer science degree, either master's or whatever, on the side, and they'll partially give you a tuition for it. I know several employers who do that, some of the bigger ones, but it's definitely something to look into for those of you who are in industry and want to get a CS degree, master's, or whatever. PhD is a little bit of a different story, but master's, I definitely would recommend that. I think there's two things that change in those years. One is practical experience, the other is life. I'm not sure what the other is life means. Life experience, I think. That's true, but I'm not sure what you mean there. Perhaps it takes both. I've definitely seen people who have the one but not the other fail to appreciate the value of theory. Yeah. It's unfortunate because most of the people I have taught only take that class because they're required to. Only like a single-digit percentage are there because they love it or want to look into it. So that's true, and I love to hear your feedback. Put it in the comments if you have ideas about inspiring future students about theory-related things. The reason it's not that way is that schools are mostly state-run daycare programs. I'm going to stay away from commenting on that. Set up so that parents can work, not a genuine implementation of skill building. I'm not sure about that. I'm going to skirt away from that. I'm not sure. Okay, if you agree, the logical takeaway from... so this is just a response to the other one. Yeah, I think it's just a response. It's not adding anything different. No, the reason is that the people who teach are naturally of greater experience and age. That's genuinely true, generally true. When you reach their age experience, they are starting to make sense. Yeah, I agree. So it's really just coming with practice, or at least getting a general idea of how things work. I found it also helps with the hardest problem in software development, naming things. Yeah. Without knowledge of the theory, it can be hard to come up with a descriptive name for some data structure algorithm you created to solve your problem. Yeah. And what you usually do is you name things based off things you already know instead of just trying to come up with something new. So, like a DFA, each of the three acronyms, the three letters in its acronym actually stands for something important about the thing itself. So it's not just coming out of something out of the blue. With some knowledge of the theory, you can put... I love how all of these comments so far are not about the video. It's just about theory, nothing other than the theory. Boy, we got a lot of comments. All right. Maybe we'll just stick with the outer comments. I think that's a good idea. But I'll put the link in the video description where you can read all the other comments. So let's, okay, maybe what I'll do is I'll just push this. Oop. No, that's the upvote. Oh, that's the close, okay. Yeah, I'll just stick with the outer comments. I don't want this video to be hours long. Interesting how so many of these problems are probably hard for a fraction of people that want to pass this exam simply because of the language in which they are expressed. Yeah, that's also an issue because this material is harder in some sense than most other computer science things. You have to be able to write things in an extremely precise way and also extremely clear way, and those two are kind of competing objectives, because if you want to be precise, you sacrifice conciseness usually. So it is a lot of the questions, if you actually watch the video, also in the description, are poorly phrased to where even I can't understand it. So if someone who has a PhD, who has taught the class 4 times at least, cannot understand the material, you're not going to get people who are going for a degree to be able to understand it, very likely. Unless there's a particular standard of terminology that they use and that I don't use. But there are some that I had trouble even comprehending what they were even asking, because it just wasn't clear. So that's just a problem. For example, I've noticed this pattern with some regularity. Large and complex expression in a paper or some other document, yeah. That's one thing too. A lot of people write papers, unfortunately, and make them longer by putting a lot of terminology and definitions for no reason, other than to make the paper long. Because there's this, not a standard, but like an unwritten rule that if your paper doesn't meet the page limit, like within a few lines, then you could have put more into the paper. So what people try to do is, if their paper they can't make it long enough, they put more definitions and theory in that are just not needed to be there. Actual implementation, 1 or more for loops with an add or multiply in the body of the loop with some initialization. I get it that some mathematical note, I'm not sure what that implementation is. Oh, okay, the implementation of some expression. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I get it that mathematical notation is nice and yeah. Another thing that people try to do is something called proof by intimidation, which is the idea that you try to force onto someone in a paper, or just telling it to them, this really complicated formula or something, and to try to intimidate them and to convince them that it's true without them actually looking into it. So that absolutely happens. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, let's see. But pseudocode could often be more clear, yeah. I agree. A lot of papers in my area are like that too, unfortunately. The same for a lot of other terminology used in the questions. How much of studying in order to pass an exam like this is simply to cram the definition for a large number of terms? The thing is, if you've practiced this, like in a class or something, you'll internalize the definitions. And you don't, actually for all of these questions, you don't need to know the definition, you just need to know some of the basic results. So like 0 to the n, 1 to the n is not regular for n at least 0. That language is not regular. So that's a pretty standard result that I used over and over and over on those questions. So it's not about not the definitions that matter. It's the knowing the basic results without having to reprove them. That's the idea, usually, in theory and math, generally. I'll look at this response. Maybe worth considering that the answer may not be as significant as some might guess. GATE is for graduate school, yeah. Part of being ready for a specialized field is being fluent in the vocabulary and parlance, yeah. I think that's the second time parlance is used. I've never used that word. That you can understand the ideas if they are restated and re-expressed in a form more familiar to you is not as helpful as it sounds if you cannot engage with your peers without laborious translations, yeah. Have you ever tried to discuss imperative programming with someone who only knows functional programming? Yeah. So it's the same idea as the the foreign language comment from earlier. It's being able to converse with people within your field. So I'm sure that all of these comments underneath are basically just responding to that. Yeah, it's just about the language. A lot of these are not answering. These haven't looked at the actual video. So GATE, saying what the GATE exam is, brings back memories. Hopefully good memories. I was preparing for 2006 after getting my bachelor's. I was so bad at automata theory and discrete math. Discrete math is TE, not ET. A lot of people on comments get that backwards. I don't think you mean discrete maths, but I'm just kidding. I never got admitted to prestigious IITs, universities, tech places. But that preparation and learning was helpful later in my career when I got admitted to a master's program in US. Cool. Good for you. I admit that I struggled with regular languages. I didn't fail or anything, but as soon as I was done with it, never looked back. That's sad. I thought about doing a Turing machine in JavaScript, but I never actually did it. It's not something that you would want to deploy, but it's a good experience thing, because then there are some nuances about like what type of Turing machine you actually want if you really want to implement it in a certain way. Because, like for example, if you go left across the tape and hit the left-hand end of the tape and try to go left again, what do? You have two different choices there. You can either stop the computation or just restart in the left-hand cell again and just re-go again. So it just really depends on what you wanted to do there. And it forces you to think of like exactly what the Turing machine should do. I wonder if people that retains all that information use it every day. That's why they retain it. It's a lot of people, at least so far in these comments, are thinking that it's about trying to memorize things when it's really about trying to solve problems in a different way. Because that's really all learning is solving problems in particular different ways. And sometimes it is memorizing things, but I don't think really in this class you need to memorize anything. It's kind of a sad thought. Yeah, I would advise you to look at my videos. Get me more views. I'm kidding. Yeah, I'll just stick with the top comments from here on, because I don't want to go too deep. My CS exams in Europe and Australia involve calculations, proving stuff, and applying knowledge to find the solution without a list of possible answers. Good. That's exactly how it should be. Multiple choice questions at this level have always confused me and seem like a really inept way of testing understanding. And in fact, that's how I did a lot of the GATE problems on my channel so far, where I remove the answers of not the video that this is for, but when I did individual questions, I just removed the answers because I wanted to get deeper insight into what the question was really asking. I was fully expecting to see an implementation of a red-black tree. I guess it didn't say theory in the title, so I guess you could expect anything. The use of software planners, blah, 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 blah. This all seems like a test of memory, yeah. Do you remember exercise? Yeah. So this person's misunderstanding theory, which is a shame, because it's what I would advise is to try to look at things in a different way, instead of just thinking things as trying to be like memorization. Because like implementation of a red-black tree, or implementation of anything, what I've had a lot of students try to do is, or at least I've seen on Facebook and things, is say, practice writing out the code for implementing a stack or a red-black tree or whatever. And that's no different than what this person is trying to say right here, which is that it's all just memory, because that's what all my students I've ever seen do. They try to memorize the implementation of something, and then only after the class do they see the value, or at least they can not look at things from a memorization perspective, but rather as a conceptual understanding perspective. So That's what I would advise to that commenter. This is an awesome video, thanks. And I'd love to see more comments like this. I love watching experts explain how they think. Yeah, thank you for that. I think this means that it was downvoted or something, or removed, I'm not sure. We had quite a strong, we've got a lot of comments to go. So let's see. We had a quite strong formal theoretical community in our CS department. You should say which one. Be proud of your department. And besides really enjoying automata theory and my later studies, it kind of formed an understanding of the practical side of researching algorithmic questions like how to fit multiple circles into one bigger circle to maximize their combined diameter. I never heard of that question. As a reservoir solutions, you can later abstract your less abstract CS problems too. Cool. It's good. Great effort by the professor, and a very helpful thing that he published it all to YouTube, but to me, all the content was garbled snafu. I'm not sure what that means, but I mean, it was almost midnight, so and I'm not usually up that late, so that's probably why. I think I did sound like that. I did sneeze quite a bit, which is uncharacteristic of me, but yeah, thank you. That kind of answers the question many students have whether the professors can solve the problems they put on exams in the allocated time. Yeah, and I agree with the comment right here about like doing the test in 20 minutes. The usual standard I've heard is either a quarter or a fifth of the allocated time. If the professor can solve it in that amount of time, then it's a fair exam. You don't have to pass GATE in order to write a compiler, parser, etc. Yeah, that's technically true, but you don't see the value in writing this. You don't see the fundamental insight into why compilers and parsers are written in a particular way. In fact, I would venture to guess that many of the most famous programmers or compilers couldn't pass the GATE exam. That may be true. That's probably true. Yeah, you don't have to, but think about your comment again. How many Larry Walls are there? Not very many. So it's another thing, like this great computer science or math mind failed his or her classes in undergrad, but ended up got the Fields Medal or something. There are not many people who went down that path. Most people who are successful go through getting either their bachelor's or master's or PhD. They all go through that route. So if you do an undergrad version of the class, you can take the GATE exam. I guarantee it. Or at least get very, very good scores on it, at least. You might not be able to get every single thing, but you can get most things. So don't feel bad if you don't understand any of the math. I'd rather learn by programming and then learn the math to explain it as I go along. That's a good perspective, I guess. That's not entirely unfounded. I would say that's good. And another thing I should say is that whatever works for you, that's good. So just because I put out theory videos doesn't mean that you have to like theory. I hope you do, but you don't have to. It's your life. You live it however you like. As a math professor, I'm amazed that our students can learn to answer exam questions about damp-driven systems without internalizing anything about the idea. I totally agree. And whoever this is, Syzyges, I know that's some word, I don't remember what it means. But that's probably what it means. Reach out to me if you're watching this video at some later point. If you have any insights about this, I'd love to talk to you. Now our pandemic is a pandemic. It's a damp-driven system and no one gets it. I'm not sure if he means Corona, or the education system, I'm not sure. I love multiple choice. I love it too, but it's only good for grading purposes. I aced Regents exams in high school by borrowing old study guides to memorize the missing half of the corpus. I recently had a great time taking the triple bite quiz and knee breathed. So I was gearing up to trying to keep up with this guy. Question 1, bam, blah, 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 blah. I read it first because it was shortest, didn't even look at. Show me question 2. He's still talking. I understand the pumping lemma. Okay, so I guess he's critiquing me on being slow. So the thing is that I wasn't trying to be fast or slow. I was trying to explain things as I went along. If I went at the speed that I could go, I could probably complete it in a quarter of the time, probably. Because some of those questions took a long time to even decipher, and some of the questions were actually quite hard. But a lot of them were quite easy, but I needed to explain things because a lot of my viewers are asking me over and over and over, um, can you not just say DFA or CFG and not explain what it is first, at least a little bit before you use it? So in a video like that, if someone has no idea and is completely new to theory, then they're going to be swamped after question 1. So it's not about how fast I went. It's about being able to explain things for someone who's not completely up to speed on everything. And the great thing is that if you're looking for a particular question to study, if you're preparing for the GATE exam, there's a timestamp for all of the year's exams. So if you're looking for a particular year, you'll find it really easily. Yeah, a bit unfair to treat it as a race. I wouldn't upvote this. I wouldn't downvote this either. Never got to question 2. I got bored. I got bored of your comment. Okay. I'm just joking. Academia was not initially tasked with the purpose of preparing students for careers in industry. Yeah, that's still largely true. They serve no intended purpose beyond their contribution to knowledge, understanding, and the enjoyment of academics. I'm not sure about that, though, because although it's probably within this contribution of knowledge. If you just left it at contribution of knowledge, I think that'd be fine. But I don't think academic programs are about people's just understanding of things. That's not the point. It's their understanding to be able to contribute to the knowledge of mankind. In some cases, there is overlap between concepts of interest to academics and those in industry. Not a lot, only a little bit. However, to expect an undergraduate degree in academic to prepare you for the needs of modern industry is to confuse the priorities and values of academia and industry. I'm not sure about that because an undergraduate degree gets you quite far. At least in computer science, it gets you really far because all these massive companies are hiring people. In fact, my first internship I got after my first semester in freshman year. The very first semester, within like a month after it, I got my first internship. Although it was just a little web development job at the university, but it was not really an internship, but it was still a real job, and I really got paid for it. Not a lot, but I did get paid for it. So you can contribute even during an undergraduate degree, much less like waiting until the end of your degree. You can raise the question of should this be the case, and of course the answer will vary across fields. That's true. However, I would suggest that it may be an error to value the profit-driven needs of the industrial world to those of the academic world. I'm not sure about that because, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. It's not entirely. There's bad things about profit, of course, as always, but it's not wrong to say that there's no value in this. So I don't think you're actually saying that, but I think that it's just a red herring to say that we should just. It's an error to look at this over this is usually a red herring. So just be careful. I think you're right in the right mindset, but I think you can rewrite this a little bit, which veer closer to having a value derived from the intrinsic nature of knowledge itself. But there's a value in not in having people who don't know all the intricacies also. And there are people who do know all the intricacies, but not how things work in industry. You got to have both sides here. You can't just have everyone walking down the same hallway, because everyone's going to be cramped there and no one's going to be able to veer out into the world if you're all just in the same hallway. Okay. If you want a school to teach you how to solve problems for Google or Facebook, I don't believe such a school should come at the cost of replacing the function and values of academia itself. Yeah, but and in fact, if you want to solve problems for them, there are plenty of YouTube tutorials for it. So so if you wanted to work for them, I honestly recommend you do get a degree, because it's extremely unlikely that they're going to hire you if you don't have a degree. You actually almost would need a master's degree in order to be hired here anyway, at least at a reasonably high job. Yeah, perhaps some fields in academia should extend study and degrees in the direction of industry-motivated study. But a lot of the bigger schools do have this. Like Arizona State has a lot of industry, and it's going toward less academics in the actual classes that they offer and more industry stuff. So that's going in your direction. So I don't know what the true answer is. If you're going for a PhD, you're going to be an academic, or you should try to be an academic. That's the whole point of getting a PhD. But if you're going for a master's without a thesis or an undergraduate, then that would be a reason to consider having, let's see, where was it? In the direction of industry study, yeah. In those two cases, that would be the reason why you would want industry. If you're going for a master's with thesis or a PhD, then, or equivalent in your country, then it should be toward academia. Yeah, it just depends on your goals. It's not always the same for everyone. And we shouldn't offer one particular route for everyone either. But don't be confused with your expectations that academic studies should provide any tangible value in a capitalistic world. But that's not true, because, yeah, I'm not even going to respond to that. As a non-computer science person, I feel very dumb right now. That's unfortunate. I do, for this person, I would recommend him or her to go to my lecture playlist, and it starts from the very beginning and goes all the way through. So if you know if you go through that sets video that's at the very top of the playlist, you should be all set. No pun intended. Really, no pun intended. An exam was 3 problems, 3 hours, 33% of your final grade. That was my experience in CS algorithms. Lots of students switched majors because of that class. Yeah, but those 3 problems usually have multiple parts and have partial grading. If there was no partial grading, that would be a bad class. And I have had classes that are toward that end. But anyway, this man was an incredible boon to me. So I think this is someone who has watched my lecture videos. So this channel, which I don't maintain anymore. I don't maintain this channel anymore. But I leave it up because it's so useful for many people. It's where I put a lot of my lecture videos. For the last few years, I put them there. Yeah, so thank you very much. These don't seem that hard. I mean, I just took a class on theory of computation, but I did pretty poorly in it and stopped paying attention when we switched to online. Most of these seem to be context-free grammar, recursively enumerable questions with fairly simple answers. That's the whole point, because you're trying to get someone for a graduate degree. So a graduate degree is, if you go out of your undergraduate degree, you should be able to go get a graduate degree. Or those are the people who would be lined up for a graduate degree. So it shouldn't be hard for people who are just finished with their undergrad degree. So if it's for someone who only had a few semesters of computer science, then it should be a lot harder. Or at least did a lot worse in this class. Seeing how the top 2 comments present completely opposing views, now I just have to watch this. Good. I don't mean to toot my own horn too here, but I'm ecstatic to see how much of my cramming and memorization in college seems to have actually crystallized. I'm doing better than I thought I would have on these as I follow along. Yeah, memorization is useful in that you can remember useless facts later. But I mean, if you tell your friends at a party, "Oh, I know the NFA to DFA conversion," you might not be allowed at that party back again. Okay, so, so but if you say, "I know how to show problems that no computer can solve," then everyone will invite you down to sit, and someone will give you a drink, and they'll say, "Tell us more." Okay, so it's about your ability to solve problems, not for memorization. Want to know if these questions are freely available? The link's there. Just skimming through the pages on the video shows vividly how far academia is from real life problems. This seems like a very terse comment, but I actually agree with it. Academia is far. A lot of the stuff is actually motivated by real world problems and is applicable, but it's just you need to be able to see the connection in order to appreciate why it's useful. Yeah, and people are going to be angry about that, as I can suspect. Learning building compilers was the most fun part of CS curriculum. You're probably the only person who has ever said that, ever. Yeah, compilers are a hard thing to build because all the details really matter. Whereas for theory, a lot of the time the details don't really matter. Like for Turing machines, the details almost always don't matter. As long as you get something reasonable, it's good. This person's asking, what is it? Watched a bit as I never came across these terms, staring at the Wikipedia page of regular language, and I don't get what the purpose of this is. And someone going, what in the hell is a total function? What's a set? And anyone not in academia preferably using this for practical applications. What are the practical applications? Yeah, so this person goes into regexes and things. Yeah, so regexes are pretty much the cornerstone of applications for regular languages. Yeah, hardly anyone is using a regular grammar, DFA or NFA, but directly. But people are using regexes for pattern matching literally all over the place. So yeah, I completely agree with that. I'm impressed by this. However, is this not a case of a human training to act like a computer and then doing it really well? There is something off about that part. I have no idea what that means. And then there was this comment here. Not sure if I can zoom in. Not true. He skipped a few after giving up. The title should be Professor Tries to Solve 240 Problems. Yeah, so that was because a lot of the questions were just either poorly written or they're just in a terminology that I can't decipher. So those were my thoughts and off-the-cuff responses to one of the biggest hits in my channel in terms of growth. So from this one posting, I got around 1,000 subscribers and 20,000 views on that one video, which is insane. So for anyone who's still watching this, please share this with as many people as you can, preferably some of the people here who just are not as familiar with theory or things like that. If you have any additional thoughts about what I've said or any of my responses, put them in the video description. As always, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out with the growth of the channel. I'd like to bring this channel to as many people in computer science struggling in this class as possible, or in anyone who has a fascination with theory or computer science or math in general. If I can bring that to as many people as possible, that's my goal. So as always, thank you for watching if you've made it this far, and as always, I'll see you next time.